a long build to the end of the season. So we want to come through this week, watch the game, get on the film, and figure out, who graded out a champion, who didn't. But ultimately, we want guys to play really, really hard in this game and get it on film, start to make the corrections. When you're in preseason camp, there's a lot of assumptions you make, some that are right and some that are not right about players, about scheme, overall personnel. So I'm excited to get that going this week and figure out what we got going into Sunday.
Tegra is a pretty soft-spoken guy. How did he take the news that he's going to start on Saturday?
He's just going day to day right now and working. I think that's what's been good about the offensive line is, guys have been, working at it every day, and we've moved some guys around in there. Even as of this past week, we've shuffled it up a little bit just to kind of see guys move in different areas. We know we have to build depth going throughout the season, so I think it's going to pay off for us. But he's been workmanlike. It wasn't like he's knocking on anybody's door and saying, what is my situation this week. He knows that if he continues to play the way he is, he's going to be a starter for us and be a huge contributor. But it's consistent and consistency that we're looking for out of him. But he's been one of the guys that we've been able to count on in this camp, and that matters. When you get 20 some odd practices under your belt and you get the 15 in the spring, those reps add up, and he's been in there now for a while. When you think about the last couple of years, we really kind of got him with the twos even as a young player, and I think all of that is starting to pay off now for him.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You've had a starting running back, but you've never really had guys who are co-starters or starters. Just for the sake of asking, who's going to take the first snap at running back on Saturday?
Yeah, I don't think Locke's decided that yet, but they're both rolling in practice. It's we're going to get our money's worth this week with the heat, and so we're going to be rolling these guys pretty good, and James is going to get in there as well. So, we haven't really talked about that right now. Those guys are rolling, and they're both going to get a bunch of reps on Saturday.
You mentioned James there. Has he made you guys feel comfortable about where the depth is in terms of who might be the third guy up at running back with the way he's played?
Yeah, I would say James right now is the third running back. He's made some really good strides. Now he's got to go put it on the field and play games, and that's different than just doing it in practice. There's still some things that he knows he's got to improve on in different areas. But in a part of that now is getting in the routine of playing a game and being consistent over time. And when you're a freshman, sometimes that can be a challenge, making sure you're getting your rest, making sure you're taking care of your body and bringing consistency every week. So that'll be the challenge for him, but he's going to play again a bunch of snaps like a bunch of these guys. Yeah.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
With the iPads now on the sideline this year, what type of impact do you think that'll have?
Well, it's the same for both sides. But I think the communication in game will be very, very important in identifying what's gone on in the last series. We did that in the stadium the last two Saturdays. We were able to go through and see what it would look like at halftime, what it would look like during the game, up in the booth, on the sideline. And, you have an ability to tag certain plays on your side of the ball so that you can all get to it at the same time, identify what those things are, and then make corrections or identify what scheme things are going on. So I think you're going to see, a little bit more in-game adjustments than maybe previously. But, other than that, football's still football. That's not changing.
Fourth row right, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Coach, in regards to Will and his mental approach, he's in a position of a team of expectations, goals higher than he's probably ever been around. How's he handled that since you named him the starter? How do you expect him to carry that onto the field?
Yeah, I expect him to be the same way he's been since he arrived here. We went through the recruiting process there, and he knew what he was getting himself into here at Ohio State. And not to speak for him, but I think there was only maybe a couple places he would have considered other than going to the NFL, and this was it for him. He wanted to be here, and I think a big part of that is he knew what came with it. And he's really embraced that role. He's been in here getting extra film work in this week already. He's put a lot of work in this preseason. So, we ask our quarterbacks to do a lot here, and he's embraced that part of it. So he's got a good look in his eye this week, and I think he wants to get on the field and get started.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Staying with the quarterbacks here, is Devin still firmly entrenched as your backup quarterback right now?
He is, yeah.
Going into the week, how do you want to kind of split those reps there. How quickly do you want to get on the field?
Yeah.
Play into that and just kind of feeling out the game.
Yeah, we've talked about that, Chip and I, about, as the season goes on, where do we want to insert him into games? We'll kind of see how the week plays out, but I probably don't see us doing that in terms of the third series or the first play of the second quarter in this game in particular, but it's something that we're considering.
Deep center field, Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, I know as a coach you're not going to assume anything, but if other than winning and getting out of this weekend healthy, what makes this season opener a success to you as a coach and this coaching staff when you have put all this work in the offseason?
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's simple. You want as many guys to grade out a champion as possible, 80% or more. And you've heard me talk about that before, but sometimes the best answers are the simple ones. Guys, you grade it out, either you did your job or you didn't, 80% or higher. And then, that we are the hardest playing team in the country. I mean, that's really, I know nothing's going to be perfect. It's a start. But if our identity is going to be the hardest playing team in the country and we're going to be giving unbelievable effort, we have to put that on film. We got to grade out over 80%. We got to play really, really hard. And that's what I mentioned to the staff today. And that's what we're going to talk about here in the team meeting at 2:30. And that's what we're going to, really be echoing out through all the week, and then hold them accountable on Saturday, and then come in Sunday, identify what went well, what didn't go well, and continue to bang that drum. Also knowing that we're going to have to enhance, our scheme as the season goes on.
Can you let everyone know that 130 years ago Akron won 12-6?
I have not.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
Well, kind of going off of that, since 2019, this is your first time opening against a non-Power 5 team. You don't have to go on the road against a Big Ten team. You're not playing top 5 Notre Dame. How is that different for you guys to be able to step on the field on Saturday? Not taking anything away from Akron, but knowing, it's not as much of a challenge.
Yeah. For us, it's always been about us. You hear me say that a lot, but you have to really focus on the process of it and what are we doing? And, our opponent shouldn't matter. If it does, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. So, what is the standard? Again, grade over 80% and be the hardest playing team in the country. And that shouldn't matter who you're playing, because, they all matter. They all count. And we're trying to create a standard for ourselves, and whatever team we play, and then we go from there. So like I tell the guys every day in practice, you're not allowed to have a bad day around here. It's just not allowed. So we have to understand that every time we only get 12 opportunities. That's it. Of all the work we put in and all the time and effort we put in, you get 12 opportunities. So let's go play with our hair on fire and run around and hit.
Dave Holmes, WSYX.
Ryan, we saw the guys wear the Jesus 1 T-shirts when they moved in this weekend. They had a baptism event. I'm curious. I haven't seen your team this vocal, at least when it comes to faith. What have you seen from them over the weekend, and is that something you feel in the locker room?
Well, I think this team is close. I think when you look at what they've done together as a group, they rub off on each other, and that part of it, that's their own business that they handle. But I think when you start to see and hear some of the messages that some of our team is giving, not only out in the community but to our own team on campus, those type of things, you just recognize what unbelievable guys we have in our locker room, the type of people that we have, and certainly the academic, what we've done being over 3.2 for the last, 2 semesters. And again, you're seeing things like this and some of the community outreach. I mean, they care about not only their teammates, but they care about the community. They care about Buckeye Nation. They care about the fans. And these are great, great people. And, a lot of these guys decided, to come back, or decided to come here, and could have gone a lot of other places, some to the NFL, to some to other schools, but they came here for a reason. And it was to make an impact, and the number one way they want to have an impact is win championships. But there's a lot of other ways to make impacts as well. And they want to continue to do that. So when it's all said and done, there's trophies in the lobby, there's rings to be worn, but there's also people that have been impacted and their stories to be told. And the guy to me that comes to mind with that is Archie Griffin, and now, the statue is going to be in his name here this weekend. But, of all the things he's done in terms of winning the 2 Heismans and, all the great history he's had here on the field, to me, it's the impact he's made off the field. And I can't tell you how many people have shared stories with me about, being a young kid who looked up to him, and Archie took time, or he went to an event and spoke to folks and he took time. And because of that, he's a legacy. What he did on the field is unbelievable. But to me, he's even more special for what he's done off the field. And I think, our guys have embraced that in the locker room.
Andy Backstrom on 3.
Ryan, what will it look like for special teams in game? I know you've talked about the strategy with using assistants. Is it going to be different for in game and since the coaching changed with that role? Are you going to allow like the Rob Keys and will they be involved in here?
Very much so. Yeah. So Rob is going to be sort of like, the ringleader of it all. And I'm right there with him for everything. And we're going to utilize everybody we possibly can. Matt Guerreri is running the punt team. James Laurinaitis is doing the kickoff. Brian Hartline and Keenan Bailey are doing both the return units, kickoff return and punt return. But we got everybody involved. Tim Walton's been a big part of this. Each of the coaches have been very much involved with the special teams here in the preseason. So Rob is the point person. He's the one who's going to help game plan and organize, meet with the individual group. We met this morning with the entire staff who was involved with special teams, went through the game plan in all 4 phases. But then when we get on the field, I'll be involved in terms of the substitutions, making the calls with Rob, but then getting feedback from each individual coach.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Brian, I know you said you guys had to figure out which running back takes the first snap. When you have 2 guys like this, is it more so seeing those guys in terms of like figuring out carries? Is it more so figuring out which guys are the best and kind of going with the flow, or you feel like you have a minimum snap count that like each of these guys need to hit? I know you're not going to tell us what that is, but
yeah,
the idea of that.
I mean, I think you have an idea of how many carries you'd like to see for each guy, but you don't know how it's going to shake. And Locke's going to get a feel for that, and he'll be responsible for handling the substitution pattern there. These things seem to have a way of working themselves out. It seems to be a topic of conversation sometimes. This time of year, like how's it all going to go? I think we get a feel for it, and assess it after the first game. This will be the first time for Quinn Sean that we've been in a game with him, and it'll be interesting to see, as we go, how he goes as the game goes, and the type of back that he is as the game wears on. But I'm excited to see these guys run.
Far left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Ryan, this weekend was an exciting week 0. I don't know if you got a chance to watch any of the games, but with Florida State losing, is that just another reminder that number next to your name really doesn't mean a whole lot? And have you had any conversations with your guys as a reminder about that?
No, not in particular about that. But I think that's why you hear coaches say, when they talk about rankings, the first thing they talk about is what matters is the ranking at the end of the season, and it's coach speak. But that's a great example. I didn't get a chance to see any of the game, but I mean, I think the first thing that's noteworthy is because of the way college football is now with some of the roster turnover, you may not know exactly what you're getting with each team early in the season. And I think that's significant because, when you look at the roster of some of the teams early on, you're like, okay, where were they last year? Well, this guy came in from here. He came from there. Some guys got older. Some guy maybe didn't play because he was injured. He comes back in, but that roster looks a lot different than maybe it did the year before. So I think, that's something that's noteworthy, but as we know, I mean, you got to bring it every week, and it has, what your ranking is has, no indication of where you're going down the road. What matters is what you put on the field and what you earn.
Real quick, you mentioned the heat. How do you get your guys ready for what's going to be a warm game this week without kind of wearing them out at practice? Not your first time dealing with it, but it's a question.
Yeah, I mean, it's hot all across the country. You know what I mean? We're in the north, so I mean, it's just something you got to learn to deal with, and you got to hydrate really, really well and recover at night and get your rest. But you got to make sure you're hydrating throughout the week. If you think you're just going to hydrate the night before the game, it's too late by then, and then guys start cramping. So we got to make sure that we're all over that and mix all over that, and we hydrate test everybody every day. So we'll do that and just make sure we're on it. But like I said, it's hot. Other places other than Columbus, Ohio, so we'll handle it.
Right next door, Jared Smalley, WCMH.
Hi, Ryan. On the subject of roster management, big picture question here. You now have a general manager, and now that you're into the football season, you're relying on him to do things that are new in that role. Some of the programs like yourself in Alabama have these positions now. Can you walk us through Mark's contribution, how it's evolved in that title, and what that allows you to do in your role coaching the football team through the season? Because there's so many tasks involved. roster management, understanding how NIL is functioning and who's getting what? How does he help?
How does he help? Boy, that's a long answer. Because first off, Mark is he's been unbelievable to me personally. He's been unbelievable loyal to me and loyal to the program. He is somebody who works really, really hard at his job, and I think he's the best in the business at what he does. And his job has completely changed, even in the last 6 years. He's an excellent evaluator. He does a great job of understanding where the college landscape is going, where it needs to be to adapt. And, he's really had a huge hand in putting this roster together. Now, it used to be the evaluating and then the recruiting part of it, the weekends. But then when you went to official visits in the spring, that completely changed. Now, we've gone from having a couple people on a visit to now having, 15 recruits and their families and you're talking over 100 people for a weekend. And it's almost like event management. There's that part of it. Then there's, the NIL piece of it, and his conversations with agents and, some of the folks in the community, and he's had a huge hand in all of that. So he's, his role has increased and it's become more and more important. And like I said, I think he's the best in the country at what he does.
Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports.
Coach, can you give us a breakdown of like Chip Kelly up or down, like how that's all going to look? Where the coaches will be stationed and all that.
His plan is to be up in the box. And, I think for him, being able to get organized up there, he's got the tablet up there, he's got his call sheet up there. He can really, be clean after every series. I think that's one of the things too, that he and I were even talking about, is that when you're on the sideline and you're the head coach, you have your call sheet, but it's hard to, get your next series ready when you're doing all these other things. When you're up there, you get a desk, you can sit down, you can get your thoughts organized for the next series. You can go through everything, you can communicate well. And so that's going to be his plan. Tim Drebno will be up in the box with him, Billy Fessler and Tony Johnson on offense.
Wide receiver, we've asked about a lot of positions, who's starting. I know you were taking the tact of slow rolling the talk about Jeremiah Smith, but where do things stand there at that position with maybe the top three that are going to be out there to start?
Yeah, they're and Brandon Ennis is right there. Bryson Rogers, Kojo Antwi, Jaden Ballard. I mean, you'll see all these guys play. I'm excited to see them play. They put in a good preseason and need a couple more days of prep into this first week, but they're excited to get out there just like everybody else.
Jeremiah will be out there at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
Folks, we've got to keep it at one question or we're not going to get everyone in. Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, since the 2 losses to last season, it seems like you guys have just been building towards this. I know you mentioned earlier that this build continues. This doesn't end anything. But to get to week 1, to get to a game, to kind of get back into that rhythm after an off season of talk and whatnot, just how much is there the excitement and getting things rolling?
Yeah, we were really excited, and that's kind of what we said. Yesterday was our first game week practice of getting back on the field and playing games again. It feels like forever since we played a game, and there's been a lot of hard work. Mostly by the players, but also by the coach, by the staff. A lot of people involved to build this team, and Coach Mick and his staff, and coaches, and everybody involved. To put this roster together, to go attack the season. And I can't say enough about the leaders and the guys in this team who have continued to work hard to get to where we are right now. And now it's time to go put it on the field and play. But now there's a lot of excitement, and just like any time around here, everyone's excited about the season. There's a lot of talk around Ohio State football, and that's great. But what matters is what we put on the field and what we do on the field. So, like I said, fired up to get on the field and get on the film afterwards and figure out where we're at.
Dan Holt, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, with Will having a couple weeks going into the season to be the starter, do you feel like the offense is in a better rhythm than maybe it was this time last year?
We'll see after the first couple of games, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I do feel like we've had some really good days of practice. I feel like we've had a couple really good moments in some scrimmages. Still looking to be more consistent. Where our expectations is my expectations of where we are and where we are right now. We're not close, but I didn't expect us to be either. So it's like I said before about Quinshon. It's the same with Will. Like, we haven't played in a game with Will. We haven't played in a game with Quinshon. So I'm, again, fired up to see what it looks like on the field. But, then get on there and figure out if some of the assumptions we've made are accurate and which ones aren't. And then enhance the things that are going well and fix the things that need to get fixed.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North, the podcast.
Ryan, you and Chip both I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, when Will was named the starter, said that the quarterback is the run game coordinator. And I don't know that I've ever heard you put it in those terms before. So is there anything different that's on Will's plate in that regard, or just what are you expecting him to handle when you say the quarterback is the run game coordinator?
Yeah, I think it's something that, and it's an approach that Chip's always had, where there are multiple places the ball can go, in particular with, the way that Chip likes to run it and some of the things that we've done in the past with like Justin Fields, where you're reading an end and you have to make a decision. I'm either giving the ball or I'm pulling the ball. There's an opportunity to throw the ball or hand the ball off, or check the play. So, rarely in this offense do you just take the ball, hand it off, and move on. There are some that take a deep breath, but I think what Chip is getting at, and kind of, the when we say run game coordinator is, the decisions that have to be made. It's not just in the passing game, it's also in the run game, equating numbers, reading players, whether they're linebackers, safeties, or on the line of scrimmage.
Will's handled that pretty well, you think?
He has, yeah. And he needs to be. I mean, he's got to be an expert. He's got to be the best in the country at that, because if he can do that, then, and again, not extraordinary, just routine plays, making them, then we'll have an opportunity to continue to make first downs. We want to have positive runs and get completions. And that's the focus early on as we get going.
Tom Berry, WBNS.
Coach, you've said that you've seen an edge with this club in practice. How important is that? What do you do as a head coach to enhance that? And do you think these guys are ready to play a game now?
Yeah, it goes back to how we practice. And if we're going to play that way, we have to practice that way. And again, this is, age-old commentary, but if we expect to play with an edge, we got to practice with an edge. If we're going to play tough, we got to practice tough. If we're going to, have guys, getting their hands on balls in the back end, then we got to do it in practice. If we're going to have guys finishing down the field, then we got to do that in practice. If we have guys playing, on punt return who are going, 12 seconds on a return rep as hard as they possibly can go, that's got to happen in practice. And so we just continue to create those environments and demand that there's that. Now, for this team, we haven't really had to demand it that hard. I mean, when it's time to go, when you put the ball down, they're going at it hard. But that's our job as coaches, to create that environment, because, as the saying goes, you're going to sink back to the level of your training. And so we have to make sure that happens every day in practice. And, good news is it's been like that in practice, but it's going to continue.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
With most of the other quarterbacks, I guess, Justin, with the exception, you had years to build a relationship with them. You haven't with Will. What have you done to kind of hasten that process? And I know he wanted you to coach him hard, and if you could give details of how you've done that, great. But how have you kind of hastened that relationship with him, and how is it right now?
Yeah, I was able to spend a little extra time with him, during the spring, and and I'm right there next to the quarterbacks, and he definitely doesn't have to worry about me coaching him hard. I can tell you that. But I think he knows. I think there's a level of trust there. He knows, what's come before, and we talked about that during the recruiting process. That, like, all right, here's what needs to happen in order for you to get to where you are. And again, I just see the way he's been in the hallways this week. He's been around it. He's studying it. He wants it. So this is just the beginning, but he wants to be a great player, and he knows that if he buys into this offense, he buys into this team, he buys into our culture, that he's going to do that. We've seen, that all, and more so far. So again, it seems like, we're never going to get to this first game and get on the field, but it's time to get on the field and go play football.
Austin Ward, podcast.
Ryan, you've talked often about the potential length of the season and needing to build depth. You've been asked about a couple specific positions, but I know they're all different. Generally, do you think that your philosophy to younger guys or building depth, whether that's by design or different game situations, do you think that's going to be different? Do you expect it to be different? What is the planning to build that early in the year?
Yeah, I think that it needs to be a little bit different. I think there's some things we've done in the past that have been really good, and some other things that we probably need to do a little better. But also considering that this is going to be a different season, So I think that leads you to, there's some things that we need to do to make sure. And sometimes, you got to go put them in the game and, kind of hold your breath. But it's the right thing to do because you just never know how these things are going to go. So, again, whether it all happens in the first game or not, who knows? But philosophically, we got to get guys in the game and we have to prepare guys to get ready because, that run down the stretch is going to take everybody we got.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, now that you've had a full preseason run up to practice with the helmet communications and all that, how has that gone? How do you anticipate it just being a factor, and what have you kind of learned practicing with it?
It's different. Yeah, it is different. And, cutting it off at 15 is significant. Making sure that we have a plan for if it goes out, which can happen at times. When we were in the NFL, I remember that would happen sometimes. You've probably seen it in some of the games where it goes out for 30 seconds and that can get you out of whack fast. So just those type of communications. But I think it's allowed Chip to communicate in particular situations really well with the quarterback. What's the down the distance? What can we expect here? Those type of things. And then getting feedback from the quarterbacks on, what is too much information. So it's been good, but the day-to-day has mostly been just, in practice. The two that we've had were mock scrimmages. We turned it off at 15 to really get a feel for that. So, we'll get the call in early and get them lined up and go from there.
To clarify, will Chip solely be the one talking to Will, or will you be able to talk?
So I have it on me, which we did the other day, and I just realized that. I said, well, I don't know if that's good or bad for you, but so I do have the ability to get on there and talk to him, but I'm mostly going to let Chip do that.
Any final questions? Tim May podcast.
Thanks, Jerry. Three-parter. Number one, will you watch the Connor Stallions piece tonight on Netflix? Number two, what is your favorite moniker going into this year? Is it Hair on Fire or is it Leave No Doubt, which you said in Indianapolis, which was kind of stirring, to a certain extent?
Mm-hmm.
And then number three, what do you want most? Now, I'm asking another number three. A lot's being made of the $20 million mark that Ross threw out there and stuff nationally about this roster, but you had a lot of guys come back, et cetera. And just what's your take on that kind of like hanging over this team as it heads into the year?
Yeah. So, no. What was the second question?
What's your favorite moniker? Hair on Fire?
Yeah, I like
Leave
it.
No Doubt.
Yeah, Leave No Doubt is something that when you again look back at kind of where we've been and coming up a drive short, a play short, and you can't leave it to one drive. You can't leave it to one play. You just can't. You have to leave no doubt. And that's it. It's like whether it's a prize fighter going down to, either knock them out or leave it to the judges. You can't do that. And so, that's been something that we've talked a lot about. Mick has hammered it in the off season. We still, break down some of our meetings that way. We have to do that. So, that's probably the one this year that, we've grabbed onto the most. And then, our team, every year the expectations are high. We've talked about this for years, and there's been a lot of teams, a lot of talent, a lot of great teams here. So that's nothing new. And so our focus and this team has done an unbelievable job of just putting one day in front of the other and going to work. And that's about to start here. So, I think our guys have had a good preseason. I think they're focused. I think they know what's important right now, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to focus on trying to play the best game we can on Saturday and build from there. And that's all we can do.
I'm talking about the $20 million thing is some people best roster money can buy type thing and stuff. Does that bother you that that's out there?
Well, I think, sometimes, things are said, but when you look at our guys, they're here because they want to be Buckeyes. They're here because they want to win championships. They're here because of each other, and to see, what they did the other day on campus, to see the impact they're making on people. Like, they understand what it means to be a Buckeye. They understand what it means to win a championship here. And that's the most important thing to me. The other part, there's a lot of changes in college football, and we're going to do everything we can to adapt and make sure that we're doing our part. But there's been a lot of hard work to put this roster together. And that's great. That's what we're supposed to do. We're doing our job. But to me, it's about these players. And that's the number one thing for me. And that's what allows me to put 2 feet on the ground every day, is envisioning, these guys and these players, hosting trophies and winning championships. And I think it's the same way with our entire staff.
Thanks, Ron. Very much.
Yep.
Thanks, Ron. All right, folks, we're going to jump right into press conference with Coach Jim Knowles. We'll open it up. Tim May podcast.
It's
Jim,
not going to be a
what-
3-part question.
I'm sorry, man, but they accumulate. What's got you most excited about this defense as you get ready to embark on this season from the standpoint? Is it the veteran-laden aspect of it, the athletes that you've got? I mean, how would you describe to somebody who doesn't know much about it?
I would say the ability to play fast, because when you know what to do, it allows you to play faster. On-field adjustments, that they can make because they understand the defense. But really, you just want to see guys playing fast because they know what to do. That's critical.
Right behind him, Stephen Kreisnik, Cleveland.com.
Last week, Cody Simon was talking about what it meant to him to get the block out and said that it had been a goal for him for a while. Could you tell pretty early on and getting to know him that he was a guy that had the opportunity to mean more for this team than necessarily X's and O's?
Yes, conscientious, team guy, right? Do whatever it takes. No ego involved. For my first 2 years here, he kind of did a little bit of everything. He's just somebody that you could count on all the time and always putting the team first. It's just it's the kind of guy we all want to represent us because it really means something to him.
We're right, Austin Ward, the podcast.
Jim, you've mentioned throughout the month, safety depth and having, some attention on that. I asked Ryan about maybe wanting to play younger guys and build that depth for the course of the year. If you're talking about that position specifically, and what you have in Caleb and Lathan, do you think you're more willing to put Malik out there or Jalen McClain out there in key situations than you might have been previously, or what would be your philosophy on that?
Key situations, you want your best guys. So I think when you have a clear divide between the first group and the next group, you're going to have your best guys in there in a key situation. I mean, you're going to look to continue to build that next group because anything can happen in this game, and they may be in there in key situations, but at least initially, until they get their feet wet, you're going to have your best guys in there.
What about I shouldn't have said key. What about 14-0 in the second quarter? I know it's a hypothetical.
I would say no. You're playing your ones.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, 2 years ago, you were recruiting Caleb Downs, and he ultimately picks another school, goes to Alabama. What were your emotions like this year when you sort of had a second chance and he decides to come here and all the potential that he brings and the impact he had? It's probably going to be more common in this sport moving forward, but just to go through it for somebody of his caliber, what was that like?
Well, you take the emotions out of it. So when you say my emotions, you take the emotions out of it. I just knew we had to be on point. I guess that's, really it becomes, you look to recruit someone like that who understands the game the way he does. it's like a job interview, it's like game day. So it's not, my job is to not be that rah guy and all the beautiful things about Ohio State. My job is to explain the defense in detail so that he understands that I'm going to be able to coach him and make him better, on the field and with the scheme. So it's a lot more analytical,
Benowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, Ohio State's traditionally played a marquee non-conference opponent. Notre Dame, obviously, the last couple of years. You don't have that this year. And is there any kind of concern that you might not be challenged the way that you would need to be challenged before you get in the meat of the schedule? I mean, how do you kind of feel about? You don't overlook any opponent. I get that, but we also are realists. How do you kind of approach it?
I approach it the same. You're right. That's not something that falls under my bailiwick. It's an Ivy League term. Yeah, right. Bailiwick. Can't be concerned with that. We're looking at our play on the field, and I'll challenge them. I make sure that I personally challenge them, no matter who the opponent is.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Kind of following up on what Austin was asking, but applying it to linebacker a little bit. I think in the past years, you've talked and vocalized the need to put Cody Simon out there more when you had Steele, when you had Tommy, and maybe just run out of snaps at some point. But you were talking about with the safeties, maybe there is a clear divide between the starters and the backups. Does that still apply to Will with Sonny and CJ? And if not, what would you ideally like to see what that split looks like between those two guys in that spot?
Yeah, no, it doesn't apply to CJ, right? So that's when you get into like, okay, we have CJ, who, when I think about things, I think about, okay, is there a clear delineation 1 and 2, but not with CJ. I mean, just like Cody was, I consider CJ a 1. So, you could see the combination there. You could see Sonny playing Mike and CJ playing Will and Cody taking a rest, or you could see CJ at Will and Sonny taking a rest. So I think all 3 of those guys are considered 1s and should play equally.
You said Sonny, and I'm not saying this happens on Saturday, but like, has he shown you he can handle that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Sonny is extremely coachable, and he's one of those guys you can tell things to one time and he gets it. So we have some versatility there.
Tony Gerben, Buckeye Huddle.
You mentioned recruiting Caleb was like game day. Were you an aggressive play caller that day? Was it bend but don't break?
No, yeah, we were. We packed up the laptop. Very. I really likened it to when I interviewed at Oklahoma State, and I think Coach Gundy brought in 10 guys. Brought you into a room, grilled you for 3 hours, didn't see the campus, shut the laptop, left. Find out whether you get the job or not. That's what it was like, Caleb. Pack up your laptop, head to Georgia, get in the house, 3 hours on the tape, pack up the laptop, and hope you did a good job.
Right next door, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
I asked Ryan about just kind of the excitement coming off of the way last season ended. Your defense obviously played well to end that season, but they've talked about how they felt like there were stops they could have made in those final 2 games. How much do you sense the opportunity that they feel to go out and kind of reestablish themselves as that dominant group once again?
Yeah, they get it. I mean, you have to prove yourself every week. And yeah, there were, okay, maybe statistically we played okay, but we didn't win every game, and they are determined that if we have to win the game 3-0, could have won the bowl game 3-0. I mean, that's on those guys, and they get it. You know, every week you go out there as like you're delivering your thesis. You know, you have to prove yourself on that day, and I think they understand that challenge, and they want the fans, the media, the rest of the team to be able to know when they go on the field that they can be counted on, no matter what the situation, no matter what the score.
Dan Holt, 11 Warriors.
Jim, Cody was saying last week that, you guys think, offenses are going to try to do some tricky stuff with the helmet communications. So how do you guys kind of prepare for the fact that, offenses may get into formations late?
Mm-hmm. I think when you teach now, you have to prepare your players and your on-field play callers and adjusters that I won't necessarily be able to make all the right calls for you. So it starts a long time ago with the teaching. Like could be that you're going to have to make a lot of on-field adjustments yourself. So you better know the defense.
Final 2 questions. Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Jim, we talked with Matt Guerrero and some of the safeties in last week, and Matt and a couple of players said they're less focused on like bend and adjuster and kind of just doing both, and maybe just focus more on just kind of like playing safety. Is that like an intentional switch that you wanted to make this year? Is that just natural progression of the defense where guys kind of, I don't even know, cross training might not be the right word if the positions are so similar, but
No, yeah, cross training's a good word. When you get to the game, there are times you may have to do that, but not necessarily go into a game that way. But when you're training safeties, it's good to train them in everything, because somebody goes down, you need to make an adjustment, so I think it's a great thing to do in the spring and the fall camp. But, as you get to game week, it becomes more defined.
is that, you talked about wanting to disguise things a little bit better. Does having guys be kind of multi-positional on the back end help you with that?
Yes, because they understand the coverages, and if you want to change coverage one way, that they get it because they've done it on the other side.
And final questions, Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Jim, I'm not an expert on your career trajectory, but just like cursory glance, it shows that year 3 has been generally the best year statistically for your defenses in the stops you've made. How confident are you that that's going to be the case now, considering that there's not far to go from where you were last year? But what is the biggest difference for you as the play caller this year and just for the overall mindset of the defense from last year?
You always take the tools that you work with, and it's the job of the coaches to get the best out of what you have now. Maybe that year 3 is because, you get the guys who a couple years in the system, and now you're working with veterans, so here at Ohio State, we're working with veterans who are also extremely talented. So, you have to expect the best and chase perfection. It's just what we got to do.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
Folks, I'm going to turn it over to Mike and Will Howard. I've got a 1 p.m. So when we're done with interviewing Will around 1 o'clock, need everybody to just move out to the lobby if you're going to write.
Football joke.
I got it.
Honestly, so we're going to keep the one question again. We're going to go 10 to 15 minutes. So may not be able to get all of you. If I don't get all of you, we'll get you next week. We'll start in the front row, Austin.
Well, I know that this sounds like a question you've been asked a lot about coming to a new program, getting comfortable, and you've described that already. In terms of becoming a leader, is there a point where you started to feel like that was setting in and that people were listening to you in the locker room, or maybe that won't happen until you play a game. I don't know. But like I'm trying to make that different than just like, hey, you know where to go for practice.
Yeah, no, it's that's a huge part of it, especially coming in, I say that my situation is very different than like, coming in as a true freshman. You have to come in and really gain the respect and the trust of a whole football team in the span of 6-7 months. And, for me, the first thing that was the most important thing was just getting relationships with everyone. I was like, I want to get to know everyone on the team because, they're not going to respect me if they don't know me, and so that was the first thing. I was, that was what the spring was for, what the winter was for. I was like, all right, I want to get to know these guys, let them get to know me and, kind of just go from there. And then once I feel like for me, like once we got through that spring coming back into the summer and we started up summer workouts, that was when I kind of started to settle into that role and feel a little more comfortable, challenging guys just because, we already had that relationship. I feel like, we worked hard in the summer and Coach Mick gave us a lot of opportunities to become leaders, through some of the challenges we had in our workouts and our runs. And he put us through the fire so that, we had to deal with some adversity before, we just get out there on the field because it can't be the first time that you're going through something out on the field, so we've already experienced a lot of tough stuff, in our controlled environment, but I'm excited to get out there on the field and show these guys how I can really play in a real setting, because they haven't got to see me play, in a game yet. So I'm excited for that.
The players say there's nothing like playing a game in the shoe. This will be your first experience. What are you most looking forward to? How well will you sleep the night before the game? And just what's going through your mind?
Man, I'm so excited. Like I truly can't, I can't overstate that, like how excited I am. I'm fired up, man. I grew up as a kid watching the Big Ten. I played in a lot of places now, at this point in my career, I've played in front of hundreds of thousands, but the shoe and the atmosphere here, it's different, man. And the traditions, I'm really excited just to experience all of it. We've walked through like, what's it going to be like on a game day, but just getting out there and doing it for the first time. And I think the thing I'm most excited for is running out and in front of 110,000, at the shoe, and just taking that in because, I only get so many opportunities here. I want to make sure I soak it in, before we go out there and get to business, strap it up and play.
We'll go over to the left, Whitney Harding.
Hey, Will. I asked Ryan this question as well. Exciting week 0. Every coach and player will always say you don't look ahead. Was the Florida State loss, is that just a reminder of that mindset? I don't know if you saw the game, but
I did.
Is that just a reminder? Yeah, you've got to stay locked in on each game.
100%. And I mean, I think that shows you that, especially conference games, I mean, anything can happen. And you can't overlook anyone, just because, Georgia Tech was a lower seed and, wasn't really ranked. I mean, you can say that, for really anything, but I think it just really emphasizes the fact that, you can't overlook anyone and the most important thing is what's right in front of you. And for us that, we know that we got a lot of matchup games down the road and a lot of really important games and some tough teams to play. But, the most important thing for us right now is Akron. And, it's because it's the next thing.
We'll go right here in the front, over Dinwiddie.
Just this year, does it feel like a whirlwind to you that, a year ago you were playing for Kansas State and now you're here? I mean, have you been able to process all this?
Yeah, it is. It is a little weird, it's kind of stepping back and thinking about like, oh, I'm going to be playing college football, but not at K-State. It was kind of weird at first when I had to kind of put that in my brain, but I've mentally prepared myself for this, for a while, and I kind of knew that last year was probably going to be my last year there. So I knew that whatever I was going to be doing was going to be a new step. And I mean, this step that I've taken has just been a blessing in every single way. I feel like just the opportunity and the challenges that I've had to go through already here, have really made me better, as a player. I feel like a different player than I did even last year. So I'm just excited because it's a new opportunity. It's a new challenge. And, it's kind of lit a new spark in me, and I don't want to say I was complacent last year, or, in my time at K-State, because I wasn't, but it lit a new spark, and there's something special about this team and about this year, and I'm excited, man. It's going to be fun.
Go over here to the right, Adam King.
Kind of 2 parts here. One, what was your reaction when Ryan told you you were the starter? And 2, in your mind, what does it mean to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State? What comes with that? What is that role?
Obviously, when he told us, I was very excited. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and I don't take it lightly. And there's a lot of really, really good players in that room, and to be named the starter in a group, like we have is an honor, and it truly, is special to me. And being the starting quarterback of Ohio State, it's truly, like I said, it's a blessing, man. It's not something I take lightly. And, I know that there's a lot of stuff that comes with that. I know there's a lot of expectations and, pressure, if you will. But, I knew that was the first goal on my list when we got here, was to be the guy. And, I knew I had to work for it, and the guys in the room weren't going to make it easy. But I felt like I had a good camp, and I showed the coaching staff that, what I could do, and felt like I finally settled into the offense for the first time. And, just going through fall, I feel really, really confident with, kind of how I'm feeling the offense out, and how I'm kind of, evolving in this system. And yeah, I'm flattered. I'm fired up, man. It's humbling, but it's also, something I don't take lightly at all. And I'm humbled. I'm blessed, man. It's going to be fun.
On the aisle here, second row, Bill Landis.
Well, I asked Coach Day this. He and Coach Kelly both kind of called you the run game coordinator of the offense. And I know you did a lot of run game stuff at K-State, but is there anything different about what's on your plate here with this run game with Chip? And I guess just the responsibility of making sure you're always on point with your reads. How do you think you've handled that throughout camp?
I think it's really good for me. And I think, they say that all the time is, what is your job in the run game? You're the run game coordinator. And, it's my job to, say we have a good play called, or we got a pressure coming from the field. We don't want to run this play into it. It's my job to get us in and out of that. Obviously the coaches can only do so much, but we're the ones that are out there, actually calling the shots. And I'm the one that's got the chalk last on a lot of that stuff. So it's cool. It gives me a little more sense of responsibility about the offense, and it makes you as a quarterback, you're always clued into something. It's when you're a quarterback and you're, mentally taking plays off, that's not a good thing. You should be dialed in every single play. Here, what's my plan? What I need to have a plan every single play. And Coach Kelly and Coach Day have done a really good job of kind of instilling that in me, and, just taking responsibility for a lot of the things that I have to do, in terms of whether it's protection or run game, whatever it is, whether it's controlling it with, our different calls or, RPOs or whatever it may be. It's my job to get us in and out of good and bad plays. And it's a good responsibility. It's good for me for, developing myself for the next level. And I think it's good for overall for the team, because, when you have a run system where you can call a play and it can go 3 different ways, and all of them, have an answer for everything, like that makes it easier on you as an offense. You don't have to run plays and waste plays that are good versus something and not something else,
Front row, Julie Coughlin.
What's it been like having Chip Kelly when you're here with the headset and practices, and how different is that for you as a quarterback this year to have that new technology? I think it's, when you use it to your advantage and in a good way, it's really cool. And I think, it took a little getting used to. We had to work through some kinks, and, some days it's really loud and staticky, and, some days it's, it's perfect. But, just going through it and kind of working out the kinks of it through camp, I think there's a lot of really cool things you can use it for. And, if you're breaking the huddle, early, you got him till 15 seconds, he can give you little reminders here and there. Like there's little things that you can do with the headset. And, I think you can, if you use it to your advantage and you're efficient with it, then I think it's going to be a really good tool for us.
right in the middle.
When we talked to you, you were mentioning one of the things you wanted to get better at is just pushing the ball down the field more, not necessarily how good you were, but just your eagerness to do it a little bit more often. And this is, I mean this with all due respect to all the talent you've played with in your career. How much of that is just the weapons you have here being open means to something a little bit different, where maybe you're able to take a few more chances because you're throwing the guys where maybe you haven't had guys like this in the past?
Yeah. And I mean no disrespect to the guys I've played with, because I've played with some really good players, and I don't want anyone to take this out of context, because I've played with a lot of good players, but I think here it's a little different. And the way that Coach Day and Coach Kelly teach some things are, hey, that guy's wide open. He may not look wide open. He may have a guy right on him, but he's wide open. In the NFL, he's wide open, and that's the mindset that I've had to kind of develop a little more, is like, he may not be, he may not look to the general public like he's open, but if you put a back shoulder ball on him, then, that's a play you can make. And with the guys that we have here, I mean, they make plays like I've never seen anyone make plays before. So, that has nothing to do. I'm just strictly speaking about the guys that, I have, but I'm saying like, it's a blessing to be able to, if it's one-on-one coverage, I mean, they're open, it just depends on how I have to throw the ball. And I think that was a lot how Coach Kelly and Coach Day kind of instilled that in my brain. Like, hey, he may not look open, but he's wide open,
What do we take? 3 more? Okay. First round, right here.
I'm trying to remember. Did y'all huddle at all at Kansas State? When is the last time you really were able to step into a huddle, call a play, and the vision of that is the romantic vision is you're upbraiding somebody about something though before what I mean?
Yeah,
we got to drive the ball. But how much do you think that will help? I guess from a demeanor standpoint for this offense this year. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I am. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's cool. I've been in huddle system. My freshman and sophomore year, we were all huddle out of K-State, and we were all off of a wristband or not, but we were all out of a huddle. And I kind of like that, and when you're good with the huddle, and when you get out of the huddle with, 20, 25 seconds left, and you get out there and you have time to, analyze the defense, then it's good. But if you get caught in the huddle, and, there can be things that can go bad with it. But I think the way that we're using it here, trying to break the huddle, be efficient, getting out onto the football, it's good. And I like having that FaceTime with my guys, a little bit before the play. And like you said, like, whether it's reminding them on this play, hey, the running back, we got to do, this kind of footwork or whatever it is, like just giving them a little, hey, let's go get this, let's go get this one, guys. Like, whatever it may be, like, I like just being able to look at them all in the face and, before we get out to the line of scrimmage. I think that there's a cool element to that.
Thanks. 2 more, right in the middle, Dan Hope.
Will, how has your approach to things changed from when you were competing for a starting job to when you were named the starter and now you're just preparing to be the starter?
Yeah, I think, it changes a little bit. I feel like when you're given that, position, you're able to have a little more of a say in things. Say like, we're going through some past concepts, when you're competing for a job, you may not be as eager to say, hey, I don't really like that concept, coach, but, now when you're the starter and, they're telling you, hey, we want to hear your input. If you don't like a play, then we're not going to run it, like that's kind of the difference. And, I just feel like I have a little more, ownership in some of the play calls and some of the, just some of the reads and some of the stuff that we're doing. And obviously, there's a structure to everything. And, I gotta do what, the coaches tell me to, but I do feel like I have more say and I can, voice my opinion on, hey, I like this concept, I don't like this concept. And it's more of a collaborative effort, from that perspective.
Last question, Dave Holmes.
Well, has there been a moment, something, whether it's a fan interaction, teammates, walking around campus of the city, that's given you a sense of, I'm not trying to be flippant here, but I'm not in Kansas anymore? I mean, have you had that moment where you're like, oh my goodness, things are bigger here?
I knew, like I said, I grew up a Big Ten, watching the Big Ten. Growing up, unfortunately, was a Penn State fan for most of my life, but now, I came to the bright side. But I'd say that spring game, man. When I went out there for the spring game and there was 82,000 people, I was like, at K-State, we didn't even have a spring game, like they used to do spring games and they would, they'd pack it out. But I mean, 82,000 at a, if you will, glorified scrimmage is pretty crazy, and everyone just kept asking me like, oh, what was you guys' spring game like? And I was like, we had a practice 15. We didn't have a spring game. So, it's a little different, but everything, it's cool, man. The market is huge here, in Manhattan. It was really cool because it was a small college town and everyone was so bought in. But here it's like, it's a big city, but you still feel that like everyone in the city, like just huge Buckeyes fans, and feeling that in a big city is really cool. It's like, dang, like, it's not just a small town kind of thing. It's like, everyone in this city is really like bought into the Buckeyes, and man, it's cool. It's unlike anything else, really.
All right, well, thank you, buddy.
All right. Hey, thank you guys. Go Bucks.
You're not in Manhattan anymore.